Welcome everyone. Namaskaram. We'll start with the invocation. Oh Vagartha Samprukto Vagartha Pratipattaye Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Vande Shambho Mapatim Suragurum Vande Jagatkaranam Vande Pannagabhushanam Mrigadharam Vande Pashunam Patim Vande Surya Shashanka Vanhinayanam Vande Mukunda Priyam Vande Bhakta Jana Shrayanchavara Vande Shivam Shankaram Vande Shivam Shankaram. Welcome everyone to today's session of Shivanandalahari on this auspicious upcoming Shiva Ratri that is going to happen, Mahashivaratri, coming up on Wednesday. Very blessed to again be given this opportunity, because when we have to talk about works like this, it kind of compels you, puts you into this mode of constantly thinking about what we have to talk about an entity like Shiva. And therefore, by Daiva Kripa, whether desired or undesired or, very coincidental occurrence, since we have started on this, for me, Shivaratri has become like every day because constantly these verses and the aspects that are spoken about in these verses keep running in my mind. So really blessed to have gotten this opportunity. In the last session, we have so far covered 2 verses, and now we are in the 3rd verse. So in all of these sessions, we have gotten only so far as just 2 verses. And the 3rd verse, like we had started, just 3 initial words. Trayi Vedyam Hridyam Tripura Haramadhyam. Tripura Haram. We were there and we were talking about the Tripurasura Samhara. And briefly, we were talking about what the metaphysical aspects of these were. The aspect of like the Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Sharira, and how once you move beyond these 3 layers of the Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Sharira, you come to the actual Atma Anubhuti. The identification of yourself with the Parabrahma Tattva, it happens when you come in, that realization of what the true nature of that Atma is, Chaitana. Right? And that is what is the same aspect of Parabrahma. So that unification is the real motive behind what that Tripurasura Samhara, that whole story encompasses within it. And in terms of the Triputi that we started talking about, there are many, many ways in which the aspect of Tripuras can be attributed to different things. One, including the gunas, right? So we have the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. These are the three gunas that are predominant in human beings. And each one kind of like, makes you, it kind of like makes you play. They make you dance to their tunes. You have to go beyond these three gunas also, which is very interesting to ponder about, because to say you want to go past the three gunas, Sattva guna also you want to go past. What does that mean? One of the best metaphors we can give is, even though a shackle, the kind of like the bandhana, the rope, even if it is made of gold, it is going to be still limiting. You might feel happy that I'm bound by a golden shackle or a golden rope, but you're still bound. That is what Sattva Guna is. Which is why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, if you remember that verse, he says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarchuna. Be Atmavan. Be Atmavan. Go, because Atma has none of these attributes. The gunas also become attributes. So if you want to become attributeless, which is what your Satchidananda Parabrahmanubhuti, that Ananda, if you want to, Brahmananda, if you want to experience, you have to go beyond all of these attributes. Sattva Guna is also an attribute. In fact, when we talk about the Kashmir Shaivism, which is an aspect that is very close to my heart, and I know Shivagaru also has a lot of interest in it. There are three aspects that they talk about, right? So in Vasugupta Shiva Sutras, there is Anavopaya, Shaktopaya, Shambhavopaya. And there is a sutra that says Jagrit Swapna Sushupti Bhede Turya Bhoga Sambhavaha. So now we are talking about another Triputi, like in terms of the avasthas, right? So there is something called Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti. Jagrat is when we are awake. Even in, and this is a concept that you see again and again comes up in several philosophical aspects, as well as Vedanta, and definitely in devotional. And the most important one that you will encounter this immediately, if all of you, like, I'm sure are very familiar with, is in Lalita Sahasranama, right? Which is the verse in Lalita Sahasranama? Vishwarupa, Jagarani, Swapanti, Tejasatmika, Swapanti, Tejasatmika, Supta Pragnatmika, Turya, Sarvavastha Vivarjita. Right? Vishwarupa, Jagarini. When you are in Jagrat, she is Vishwarupa. In the Jagrat state, our senses become very active, and we perceive the world and everything around it through our senses, whatever we are seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, right? From all aspects, we are consuming this world, and we get so immersed in it, thinking that this is what is true. In this Jagrat state, I am composed of all of this body, the senses, and this is who I am. I look at myself in the mirror and I think that, okay, this is how Praveen is. This is who Praveen is. Then there is another state that we go into, Swapna. When we are in that dream state, you try to go to sleep, you are in a dream state, there's a whole world that gets again conjured, that is beyond the aspects of rules of your time and space. In your dream state, one moment you are going to be in your home, and the very next moment somehow you are transported to the top of a hill or a mountain or somewhere, And there is no sense of laws that seems to constrain over there. The mind is very active. Swapanti Taijasatmika. In that state, she is like the Tejas, the one who is playing at that sense, at that stage. Mahamaya, Lalita, she is in that state, and her name is Tejas, Taijasatmika. If you go into deep sleep, so that mind is extremely active. And everything that you experience in your dream, somehow it becomes very real for you. You really feel like, sometimes people say, oh, I had this kind of like an out of body experience. I was in sleep and something happened. It felt like, I was being dropped from somewhere, and I could feel my body literally kind of like, collapsing onto the bed. It's how, but your mind is what is active. Your eyes are closed, right? Your ears, everything, the senses have withdrawn, the external senses have withdrawn, but your mind is extremely active. In Sushupti, when you are in deep sleep, even the mind becomes still. But there is the Atma that is always going to be present. And that is why they say you have to go beyond these three states also. To experience Sushupti, you need to be in deep sleep. But the whole point of the yogic marga is to transcend all of this, so that while you're completely aware, and not awareness that is external focused, external facing, external driven, where your awareness is dependent on your senses and therefore everything that it is observing. No, this state of yogic awareness is something that is internal. You have turned inwards and you're aware of what your true essence is. That they say is the Turiya state. Turiya sthiti. And you go beyond all of this. That's the metaphysical aspects again coming to the Tripura Asura Samhara. And of course, we can go on and on and on from the yogic marga perspective, where you use your breath itself, and that becomes your thread and your backbone when it is straight. That is the Meru. And the Kundalini itself, as it rises all the way from your Mooladhara, going through the Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, Rudra Granthi, and has the Sahasrara. Those are again like the Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, Rudra Granthi. They are also equivalent to be considered as a Tripuras. The Kundalini has to move past all of this. You have to Bheda, you have to cut through all of that and go to the Sahasrara to experience that Brahmananda. Right? So there are all of these dimensions that we can go on and on, but we'll continue onwards, because this is going to take just this third verse itself is going to take quite some time today. Adyam, foremost, he's the first. The foremost, the first, he is also the only one. Adi, the beginning. Adyam, he is the foremost, he is the first, he is the eldest. And Adyam is also used to represent only one. Jesthaya cha Kanisthaya cha, right? He is also the eldest, he is also the greatest, he is also the smallest. He is the biggest and he is the smallest. Why? Because there's only one. The attribute of big and small can come into picture only when there is another in reference, right? So there is a famous puzzle where you draw a line and they say you cannot do anything. You need to reduce the length of this line. How are you going to do it? Just draw another bigger line next to it. This one becomes smaller. So the moment there is Bheda, the moment there is Dvaita, another, right? The moment there is another, then all sort of comparisons start emerging. But when there is only one, what can you compare it with? Then we are compelled to, we just have to say that you are the greatest, you are the smallest, you are the biggest, you are the eldest, you are the youngest, everything. You are it all, because there is none other than you. Adyam, Trinayanam, has three eyes. Soma, Surya, Agni, Lochana. What does that represent? It again ultimately represents our own Atma Tattva. Shiva, Atma Tvam Girijamatihi Sahacharaha Pranaha Shariram Graham Pujate Vishayopabhogarachana Nidra Samadhisthitihi Sanchara Padayoho Pradakshina Vidihi Stotrani Sarvagiro Yadyat Karomi Tattadakhilam Shambho Tavaradhanam. Why? Because you are the Atma inside me. Without that Atma Tattva, nothing can move, nothing can operate. And in all of the Srishti that we are seeing, the cosmos, the three things that are the epicenter of life, as we know on earth, is Soma, Surya, and Agni. During the daytime, the world is lit by Surya. Everything you are able to see. You cannot hide what you do, because the sun rays are going to get everywhere. The whole world is lit by the sun. What about night? Can I hide in the night? Oh, well, there is Chandra. What about Amavasya? Well, Agni is always there. Even a small spark of Agni is sufficient to completely wipe off all darkness. You cannot hide from your Atma. It knows everything. The Soma, Surya, Agni, the three representative of the three eyes, it means that you can never escape from his vision. He is always observant. Again, a beautiful metaphor that comes, that the Jivatma and Paramatma, there are two birds that are sitting on a shakha. The Jivatma is enjoying and the Paramatma is just as a Sakshi Bhava. He keeps observing. Just keeps observing. Nothing escapes his sight. Trinayanam. Jatabharodaram. A very beautiful, very kind of interesting word. Jatabhara. Jata, matted hair, right? Why does that carry? Why does he just say Jatabhara? So obviously, Shiva, Jata, he's got matted hair, very weighty matted hair. Udaram. Jatabharodaram. Why is he saying that Jata is not only Bhara, but it is also Udara? Udara, in very common parlance, we mean someone who is very generous, right? So in day-to-day word, many of these aspects of the meanings, they have evolved over a period of time. The interesting part, when we are reading some of these verses and the words, there are so many ways in which the interpretation can flow. So he's calling the Jata is very it is weighty, but it is also very Udara. Udara can mean it is very magnificent, it is very vast, it is spread out, because the Vyoma itself is his Jata. That is one interpretation. The whole Vyoma, the whole space that we see, if that itself is his Jata, then how can we even comprehend the vastness of Shiva? Jatabharodaram, Udaram. Why is he calling it Udaram? One thought that comes to mind is, if it is so generous, what is the generosity of this Jata? The generosity of the Jata is in the very act of it holding on Ganga. In the Gangavatarana, when Ganga had to come down, she tells Bhagirath, the only one who can hold me is Shiva. No other man can stand up to me. If I come, and I'm going to come, she says, if you want me to come on earth, I'm going to descend on earth. I'm going to come in my full form, full force. And beware, you're forewarned that if I come the way in my full form, this whole earth is going to be like completely flooded. I'm going to like literally flood through, like kick it like a ball. What to do? Well, she said, find someone who can hold me, who can check the flow of my power, of my streams. Comes at that point in time. Shiva comes. Again, Bhagiratha does a huge penance on Shiva, and Shiva says, done. Let her come. At the appointed time when all the gods have assembled in the skies to see Gangavatarana, she comes in full force, and Shiva just opens up his jata, and in a blink of an eye, he just wraps her in that, checks her flow completely, not just checks, completely blocks her. Then again, Bhagiratha has to pray, please let her go. Just one strand he opens up, and Ganga starts flowing. The most Parama Punita. That Ganga descends from the hair of Shiva. Anything that descends from the hair, we consider that as Mailige. Right? But look at Shiva's jata. That Ganga itself that flows down from that is considered the most pure. That she can destroy all the sins. She is the epitome of utmost purity, and she descends from Shiva's hair. Jata Bharodharam. That is the udarata of Shiva's jata itself. Shiva's jata itself is so udara. What to say of Shiva? So many dimensions that start opening up with each word, right? As you start separating them, understanding, diving deep into it. Chaladuragaharam. Chaladuragaharam. Uraga. Gamyate. Right? How does it go? It goes on the basis of its stomach, on its it goes, it walks, it moves using its stomach. One that moves using its stomach, Uraga, is snake. Chalad Uragaharam, the one that moves using its stomach, is the garland. That is the hara for Shiva. He who has adorned himself with the snake as garland. He is Chaladuragaharam. Again, the snake, it represents obviously, the nadis inside you, the Kundalini Shakti. Vishnu sleeps, Shiva wears it. So the symbology of the snake itself in Indian culture is again and again attributed with all of these aspects, that you have to constantly, you have to increase your awareness. You have to be self-aware. Yoga is a great marga for arousing your kundalini, for making it jagrat and making it go up, not go down or remain still at the Mooladhara. It has to go urdhvagati, right? It has to go up. When it goes up, when you're very jagrat, when your whole, the nadis and everything is very jagrat, then you have attained the kind of level at which you start experiencing that inward depth that we need to go to. Otherwise, commonly all of us, we try to close our eyes and sit, and then immediately in the next moment the mind starts jumping from here to there. We'll talk about it. There are so many metaphors he comes up with mind. for mind in Sivanandalahari. He equates the mind to a monkey because it keeps jumping from one to other, one to other, one to other. If we are Jagrit, then it becomes an alankara for Shiva. If our to our Atma, the Atma Tattva within us, if our senses, if our mind, if our intellect, the buddhi, chitta, everything becomes so purified, all of that becomes an alankara for Paramatma. If not, everything is just nirmalya. No point at all. If your senses are always indulged in the external pleasures, if you're driven wild by all of these things, then how can we ever adorn Shiva, who is the very form, the embodiment of auspiciousness? Right? Chaladuragaharam, Mrigadharam. There are many forms in which you will see Shiva having in his hand many things. There is a Khatwanga, right? Damaru, Trishula. There is Abhaya Hasta, some Varada Hasta, many, many forms. One of the forms you will see he's holding a deer. Mrigadharam. Mriga is deer. We'll do a little bit of story time again. There are many instances, including in Rig Veda and Yajurveda, where there are references to Shiva, coming to destroy the yajna. And that itself takes the form in the Puranas later on. The whole aspect of Daksha Yajna emerges out of these references that exist in the Vedas. And in fact, even in, I think, Gopatha Brahmana, Shatapatha Brahmana, you will find instances. And there are different narratives around this, right? Ultimately, there is reference where it says that Shiva, the ultimate archer, he is like the Adi Kirata. He is the foremost of the huntsmen. He takes his bow and he chases the yajna, which takes the form of a mriga. He is not just mrigadhara, he is yajnadhara. Because yajna takes the form of a mriga, takes the form of a deer, and it runs away. Why does this happen? There are several instances, like obviously in the Vedas, there is reference to the yajna, Havir Bhaga, that they say like, oh, we are not going to we will only consume by ourselves. And we are not going to share. What is yajna? Let's understand this a little bit. Yajna is not a mere offering of oblations into a fire. That is the act that is being performed. Right? That is an act that is being performed. But what does it symbolize? It symbolizes that you are sharing whatever you have, you're going to share. That is why when offering the oblation, we say, Rudraya idam namama. This is not for me. This is not for me. This is not for me. The thing that is being reinforced in every act of offering that oblation in a yajna is that you have to be selfless. You have to distribute what has been accrued is meant for dissemination, is meant for distribution, is meant for sharing. You have to share. That is why every aspect of the yajna, if you see, it is not about just one person who has to do everything. You have to involve everyone. The whole community has to be involved. And that yajna, over a period of time, it takes on many, many other practices that are rooted in the philosophy of yajna. Ultimately, it is about sharing. Right? When you're doing puja, when you're doing cooking, cooking is a yajna. Who said cooking is not a yajna? Cooking is also an yajna. Jnanarjana is also a yajna. Every karma you do can become a yajna when it is imbued with that act of selflessness, not solely motivated by my own selfish desires and my own selfish motives. If we can transcend that and understand that the true essence of the yajna that has to be performed is to share, then that yajna becomes fulfilling. That is why, again, let's go back to what I started off with. Traigunya Vishaya Veda in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says. Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. Yes, in Vedas there is a lot of Kamya Yajnas. You want to get to Swarga, you do this, you do it like this, you offer this much of like sacrifices, these type of sacrifices. Yes, all of that is there. But at the end of the day, it also ultimately comes down to the point that none of this is going to give you Shashvata Ananda. Because after you do all of this, who knows where Swarga is, what it is. But they say that is also not permanent, because once your credit over here is like done, your bank account has become nullified, you have to come back again. So the essence is always towards moksha. What is that moksha? That unification with Shiva. And what is the path to that? Selflessness. Share, do the yajna, right? And that's why you have these Deva yajna, Pitri yajna, Bhuta yajna, all of these. Why was that prescribed? Because in every of those, they talk about selflessness, they talk about sharing. So when the Devas say that, oh, we are going to keep it, what are they representing over there? They are representing even that Devas, though being representatives of the Div, the brightness, the Sattva, they still were lured into hoarding. I'm going to hoard. Shiva is not a hoarder. Ishvara, Aishwarya is his guna, and yet nothing is hoarded with Shiva. Digambara, obviously he is going to come, no? Saying that, oh, you're going to hoard? This is the symbology behind Rudra coming against that yajna, and yajna gets so afraid looking at the form of Shiva, it takes the form of a deer and runs, jumps into the sky. Yes, there is like a cosmic aspect of like, the Mrigashira nakshatra, looking at the constellations and everything, and then you see the great archer who is shooting an arrow at a deer, right? They look at that, but then look at how that whole dimension start unraveling. That at the essence, at the root of all of it is to sustain society, to sustain humanity, to sustain the entire srishti. Selfishness is not the path to it. Selflessness, serve, share. So when the yajna runs, Shiva comes. It takes the form of a deer and Shiva becomes the archer, and then he subdues that. And then the devas say, Trahi, Trahi. Sorry, we now realize we'll give you. We will start sharing. We understood that we were hoarding. The thought of hoarding came into our mind. Sorry, we will share. Then in the Purana element, it takes the form of Daksha Prajapati, where even there also Ahankara. What does hoarding represent? Hoarding represents Ahankara itself, right? At the end of the day. Like, I'm going to hoard. I'm not going to give. Why? Because this is mine. I earned this. This is mine. I toiled. I got this. I have assimilated all of this wealth. The moment Ahankara arises, Shiva will be there to cull that Ahankara. In Purana, it takes the form of this Daksha Prajapati Yajna. Then there is again another, like I think in Shatapatha Brahmana, they talk about how Brahma, like, in the Srishti Karya, when he creates Manmatha, Kama, desire, right? Then Kama turns on Brahma itself and fires an arrow at Brahma to test. And then Brahma becomes enamored of Saraswati. Saraswati is very kind of agitated. She feels very disgusted, like, why is Brahma looking at me like this? And then she tries to take different forms. And Brahma, like, she takes the form of a female, different female forms, and Brahma takes different male forms. She becomes a cow, he becomes an ox, she becomes a female swan, he becomes a male swan, right? Like this. And then she becomes a deer, he becomes an antelope, like the male deer. She becomes a doe, he becomes a deer, sorry. Looking at this, the Devas feel very uncomfortable and they pray to Rudra, please come and control him. Then Shiva again. So that's another narrative. And again, in the Puranas, a very famous narrative that comes, and we'll talk more about that also, which is in the form of the Darukavana Leela. There are 25 Panchavimshati Leelas that Shiva performs, and one of which is the Darukavana Leela, where in the Darukavana there are again yogis, rishis, who are immersed in the yajna, act of yajna, let me say. Not the philosophy, not the essence of yajna. They are immersed in the act of yajna. And therefore, they have a lot of ego that has developed within them that, oh, we, like, when we offer an oblation and say, Indra, come, take this, Indra has to come. The devatas, whoever we call, they are going to come because that's our tapas prabhava. Satvika, like even that can also give rise to such ahankara inside us. It's baffling. How many people we see who talk about, oh, I have done so much sadhana, so much prayer, I sit for 1 hour, I do a meditation. Nothing, like, that becomes a big title that we want to talk ourselves about. The moment all of that happens, Shiva starts moving away. If you want to go close to Shiva, you have to lose all of this I. It has to shed off. These rishis, they were full of that I. Shiva comes, beautiful form, Sundareshwara. It's a beautiful, handsome man he comes, and all the Rishi Patnis who also would be full of, like, look at our Pativrata, look at our Pativratya, like this is the power that is upholding the essence of all of our rishis and everything, the husbands, like, if they have achieved so much, it is because we are Pativratas. The moment Shiva enters into the Yajna all the wives of rishis are awestruck. They're like, oh my God, how handsome he is. And immediately the rishis observe that, oh, like, they are all getting, like, lost. Who is the reason behind this? And they see this handsome young guy who's come over there. And they're like, oh, we need to teach him a lesson. And then they start offering the yajna. It takes the form of a very tamasic yajna, where they start offering to create various challenges. Out of the yajna, they give rise to a snake, a very vicious, a very extremely poisonous snake. And then they give rise to a deer. They give rise to a Vyaghra, a tiger, Apasmara, right? Everything. Shiva just very playfully, he wears the snake as a garland. He slays the tiger and wears the skin. And this mriga, he holds it in his hand. Mriga is also representative of our manas, our mind, because it is very chanchala, right? The deer is always, why? Because you observe, it's always constantly, like, agitated, looking here, looking there, looking here, looking there. Always kind of like the slightest noise from somewhere and it takes off. The slightest hint of a distraction and our mind runs behind it. One noise outside the house and we're like looking, okay, what's going on? What's going on? Who's come outside? We'll be doing puja, someone rings the doorbell, immediately our mind is at there. Oh, someone came. Right? He subdues it. He holds the mind. Mrigadharam Mahadevam Deva Kridayam. Deva, he is someone. Dev is like they are lighted beings. They are like enlightened beings. They are full of light. Swayam Prakasha. He is Mahadeva. Devadi Deva. He is the greatest of all of them. Mahadevam, Devam. He might be the greatest. He is all of these things. Fantastic. But you know what is most important for me as a devotee? Mai Sadaya Bhavam. Despite of being all of this, the greatest, the foremost, the Srishti Sthiti Samhara Karaka, the epicenter of everything in this universe, yet for someone who is as minuscule as me, towards me also he has Sadaya Bhavam. Daya Bhava, that Daya Bhava, Sadaya Bhava, which is like steeped out of pure unconditional love. That love made Shiva consume the poison when no one was coming forward to take it. It made Shiva come forward and open up his jada for the force of Ganga when no one was willing to do it. Who is more protective? Who can be more kind towards me than you, Shiva? Mahi Sadaya Bhava. Pashupatin. Again, I am a Pashu. The Trikadarshana, again, in Kashmir Shaivism, they talk about the three aspects. There is Pashu, Pasha, and Pashupati. The Pasha that binds us, there are so many, that the three primary ways in which the Srishti binds us, Mahamaya, Jnani Namapi Chetansi, Devi Bhagavati Hisa, Paladakrisya Mohaya Mahamaya Prayachati. The Parama Prakriti, Adi Shakti in her form as Mahamaya, she binds us like animals. There is the Anava, Maya, and Karmana, three pashas that she binds us into. This Pashu that we become, the one who can liberate it is Pashupati. And that liberation makes us ultimately come to the realization that what I was thinking of myself as a Pashu, I am no different. I am. That my true essence is Shiva. That is my true form. How come I forgot that I was this? Pratyabhigna Shaiva Darshana. That is why it is called you remember again. Pratyabhigna Shaiva Darshana. You remember what your true essence is. And that remembrance arises when jnana emerges within you. And who is the alambana for that jnana? He tells in the next word, Chidalambam. He is the alambana, he is the supporter. If there is jnana, jnana is standing, jnana is supported by Shiva. Everything that is auspicious, that is what upholds jnana. Chidalambam, Sambam, Ambaya Sahita. Though this Parama Prakriti, this Mahamaya, she binds us, she is also the consort of Shiva. She is Parvati. Amba, Jagannmata, she is the universal mother. And mothers can bind us in that mamate, mamakara. And she also can uplift that veil of Maya. She can uplift and say, okay, you know what? I have played with you enough. Now go. Realize who you truly are. Sambam, Shivam Atividambam. Shivam, auspicious. Atividambam. The use of those words, The way they have been paired together, Shivam Ati Vidambam. Shiva, he is auspicious, yet extremely peculiar. What auspiciousness are we talking about here? When you look at the form, and he has what? He has the human skull in his hand, right? Kapala Dhara. And in the Khatwanga, the Khatwanga is basically the foot of the bed, the leg, right? On that there is Mruga, there is a Kapala on that. He's wearing the garland of skulls. He's got all ash smeared all over the body. Stays, they say, in Smashana. The moment you enter a graveyard and come home, it's like, you've become impure, mailige, go take shower. Place where we enter and come back and we consider ourselves as having become impure, there the very form of purity, Shiva resides over there. Shiva Mati Vidambam, isn't this peculiar? He's so auspicious, and yet look at the form, such dichotomy. This body that we so run behind, taking care every single day from dawn to dusk, is this the true form? The moment your pranavayus exit, it's gone, collapses. Where is there anything more like, representative of smashana than your whole body itself? Where for the eyes to see, it is not just the eyes, there has to be a force behind it. The eyes don't see it by themselves. Otherwise, a dead man's eyes should also have seen something. A dead man's ears should also have seen something. A dead man's tongue would have tasted something. But does a dead man see, hear, or taste? No. Then what is it that is seeing, hearing, and tasting? It is the Chetana, it is the Atma that is inside it, which is the force behind everything. Without that, what is this body? It is like, just a dead, impure substance. Basavanna, in a beautiful vachana, very, what we say, very marmika, right? It kind of like really hits you over here. He says, for the body of a dead rabbit, people will come to the market to buy it. I mean, like honestly, some of these things you have to, it's an experience. Reading the vachanas and these kind of like stotras, we have to do that again and again. Basavanna says, you kill a rabbit, bring it to the market, people will come like paying you gold coins, 2 gold coins, 3 gold coins to purchase the body of that rabbit to go and cook. If a king's body is being brought, one having died, no one is even willing to offer like, 10 varahas to get that body. It's the king's body. No, it is a parthiva sharira. Impure. Oh, you saw a dead body, go take bath and come. Even if it is the body of the king, go take bath and come. And we run behind this so much. And we are open to commenting on Shiva, oh, he's a Smashanamasi. Without understanding the biggest Smashana that we carry all the time with us is this Deha. Because the force behind it is Parameshwara. He is the one who is always living in this body as Atma Tattva. When he is there, the eyes will see, ears will hear, tongue will taste, skin will feel. We are able to breathe. But for an uninformed, an externally focused mind, this form is very vidambam, very peculiar. Such a Shiva, I'm going to, like, Hridi Bhaje. In my heart of hearts, I'm going to praise such Shiva, who is the the Mula Akara. He is the one around whom this entire Shivananda Lahari keeps revolving around. I thought I would have finished this third, and we might have gone into the fourth verse also, but already I think I'm nearing 10 already. Um, we can stop now, or we can just quickly see the meaning of the fourth one, and or what would you feel? Any opinion?
I think we can quickly look at the meaning for the fourth one, if you are
No,
okay
yeah.
for another 5 minutes or so, and then we can get into questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. We'll look at the fourth stotra. सहस्रं वर्तन्ते जगति विबुधाः क्षुद्रफलदा न मन्ये स्वप्ने वा तदनुसरणं तत्कुतफलम् हरिब्रह्मादीनामपि निकटभाजामसुलभम् चिरं याचे शम्भो शिव तव पदाम्भोज भजनम् चिरं याचे शम्भो शिव तव पदाम्भोज भजनम्. In this verse, Shankaracharya, so the first one was invocation, the second he talks about what is Shivananda Lahari, third he is talking about the Shiva towards whom the Shivananda Lahari is addressed to. What is the prayojana? What is Shankaracharya desiring? And actually, being a representative of a sadhaka, what is Shankaracharya saying should be the desire? If we want to do all of this, like, read all of these verses, think about it, ponder on the meaning, listen to all of these kind of things, for what? Shankaracharya says there are many minor deities in this world who give insignificant fruits, very temporal. Here, maybe for, another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, even if we consider that there is a Swarga, we are going to Swarga after some time, again, done. You have to come back, right? These are all insignificant fruits for which I do not give any attention, even in my dreams. Swapnepi. I don't follow, nor do I give any importance to these fruits that I can derive by following a lot of these minor deities. Then what is it that you want? And he says, oh, Shambho, Shiva, auspicious one. He's calling out, oh, Shambho, oh, Shiva. You know what I want? I want the lotus feet of yours that was not even easily accessible to the likes of Hari and Brahma, who stay very close by to you, right? Like next door neighbors. Nikata bhajam, Hari Brahmadinam api asulabham. It was not very easy. Chiram yache. Always, Chiram, always, perennially, eternally, I only desire Padam Bhoja Bhajanam. I will always pray. Make me someone who will constantly pray to your two lotus feet. That is enough. The feet is enough. I don't even want anything else, because the one who holds your feet, done. Because the moment you touch the feet, Shiva has to bow down to pick you up, no? When somebody touches, immediately someone who, even who is like standing tall, has to bend down. That is Shiva. He bends. The moment you go to his feet, he immediately bends down and picks you up and hugs you. That is the essence behind the stotra. We will, in the next session, talk about, like, each of these words. Again, in Shikharini Chandas, we'll talk more about what the force behind each of this, what's meaning behind each of these, and review that. Any questions at this point in time, or comments, please?
Great discussion, sir.
Yes.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavanji. Veer, yes, please.
Yeah, since nobody was commenting, I had a comment to make on the previous one. The previous shloka.
Yeah.
Can switch over to that. So you talked at length about the Mrugadharam part, right? There is another interpretation of that Mrugadharam, which is the Mruga represents mind.
Yeah,
And
I spoke about the mind. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I missed that. I thought you were talking about the monkey thing about mind, which comes later.
Yeah. So I spoke of mind being the representative of the deer, being the representative of mind. Yes.
Of the mind, yeah. So he's the one that holds the mind in control. And if we have to make sure that our mind gets into control,
yes,
he's the only one that needs to be approached, because he resides in, again, it ties back to Chit Alambam, the one who is the controller of all, or the
support. He's the support
Alambam of the Chittam. Yes. So because he is the supporter of the Chitta, he is also the controller of the mind. So Mano, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta are 4 parts. So since he is the controller of the Chitta, the mind also gets controlled by him. So that's where it relates to the previous one.
True.
And I think in the further parts of Sivanandalahari, that actually comes up, right? Hridaya kapi atyanta chapalam.
Yes.
Yeah.
He many metaphors he gives to the mind. He calls it a creeper. He calls it a monkey. So again and again, it refers to multiple aspects of these. Yes. Makes it a bee.
Thanks, Praveen Garu. I just wanted to add my personal comment on this. We have discussed that Shiva, the very meaning of Shiva is Shubham. I mean, that is he's the purest form of the actual goodness. But it is very surprising. I have seen few families who do Amavaru Puja daily. They do Kunkumashna for all the prosperity and everything. But at the same time, they don't want to have a Shivalinga at their house, or treat him as inauspicious. So these are two very contradicting and very surprising things that why people don't understand that he is Shubham. He is the eternal form of Shubham.
There is, I think this is where different narratives come into picture, right? And again, here the epicenter of all of this is Shiva, for sure, right? There is a lot of belief, especially in many people, for various reasons. We will getting into that is like another big element in and of itself. That Shiva is very angry. He is a Krodhi, right? Rudra. That's the thing in everyone's mind. Not that Shiva is inauspicious like that, but basically they are very fearful that if you want to, and upon that, all of these sorry if anyone is going to feel offended. My intention is not to offend, but a lot of these off late so-called um, astrologers and everyone is becoming like, a sensation. They say, oh, you have to, like, if you keep a Shivalinga, you have to be very, like, disciplined. You have to do this. If not, something is going to happen to you. So when you instill fear in the mind of people, there can never be bhakti. There can never be love. What Shiva wants is literally just love. In this itself, he talks about how did Dinna, the hunter who later on become Kannappa, how did he worship Shiva? He goes, he takes water in his mouth, and then he comes, like, picks up whatever flowers are fallen. He's carrying so many things. He takes water in his mouth. He has this dead rabbit, the meat, half cooked meat in his hand, and then he sticks all the flowers into his hair, and then brings, and then he, like, from the mouth he pours it on the Shivalinga. Shiva, oh, what a beautiful Abhisheka. When someone tells that Shiva is a very angry god, my question is like, how is it that you did not see that he took all of this Dhurjati in, I think there's a very beautiful, the original is in Telugu, of course, the Kalahasti Shatakam, right? Sri Kalahasti Shatakam. In that, Dhurjati says, oh, you were so hungry for half-cooked meat, is it? Like that you went to have the food that this hunter gave you? Why did you have to do all of this, man? Like, you had a deer in your hand, you have a parashu, cut the deer right there, you have your kapala, you have your third eye itself is Agni, put that Agni, you put your kapala, cook the deer in that only, and you could have eaten it yourself. Why did you have to go to a hunter? Such fun, like, even when he is mocked, he doesn't care. It is unfortunately because these kind of narratives that get woven, that, oh, you have to be, see, when you are doing sadhana, initially discipline has an importance, 100%. I'm not denying that, but that discipline should come from a place of love and desire. Like when you want to do Shiva Puja, when it comes with that desire that I want to do Shiva Puja because I want to do it for Shiva, there won't be any fear. But many a times we are always indulging in something out of desire. Oh, if you are going to do like this, you will get this. If you don't do it like this, you're not going to get that. Next moment, we are going to be fearful. Nothing should happen. Everything should be picture perfect. And then they say for Shivalinga, you have to do it like this only. You have to put this itself. The moment we start putting all of these restraints and constraints, fear emerges. And on top of that, we have more of this like Layakarta, right? That is again a very misunderstood term. And especially in English, when Shiva is attributed as the Layakarta, the first translation that comes is destroyer. Laya is not destruction. Let's clarify that first and foremost. Laya is not destruction. Ling shleshane, right? So something, that is what is linga, that is what is laya also. That means everything dissolves in it. When you take a spoonful of sugar and add it to coffee, do we say sugar is destroyed? We don't say, oh, go take this sugar and destroy it, and by putting it into water. No, we say dissolve it in water. Why? Because taste the water, it is right there. It's just Tirodhana. That is why of the Panchakrityas, Shiva is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Tirodhana and Anugraha. He dissolves it and he makes it invisible. His Laya is not destruction, it is dissolution. He dissolves all of this, because once it's dissolved, then new things can emerge out of that. So the all of these narratives, we have to get to the source and understand with the right mindset. When the mindset is right, then all of these insignificant narratives will go away automatically. There can be no fear. He is such Ashutosha. Ashutosha. He so easily, so fast he can be pleased. Right? Bhaktavatamsayate. That is what in Sivanandalahari, when talking about this Bedara Kannappa's incident, he says, what is it with you, man? Like someone who came, like he placed his foot where? His chappals, he places his sandals on Shivalinga. When Shiva's eyes start bleeding and he gives one eye, the other one starts bleeding. So now he has to put a marker, like, where that eye is going to be, because once the second eye is removed, there won't be, anything for him to see located. So he puts his feet on the Shivalinga so that he can mark the spot where he needs to place his second eye. Bhaktavatamsayate. Such a person, you made him the greatest of your devotees. Shiva is not going to ask us to kind of like, take your eyes off and do all of this. Very next, just a couple of verses later, Shankaracharya says, people go like to get Bilvapatra, they go to the forest, they go to the woods, they climb trees, with full thorny trees, right? Like the Bilva Mara, it is like full of thorns. They go, they try to go there, they go into deep pools that are filled with poisonous snakes to get the Kamala Pushpa. But none of these people understand that, right? If you give him your Hridaya Kamala, if you give this, your heart, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. That we need to understand. They have to develop that mindset, because we can tell, there is nothing. You can definitely keep, you can definitely do puja any which ways. You're not able to get a Shivalinga, imagine Shiva in your heart and do it. Right? That's the important thing. But unfortunately, people yeah, that's my perspective.
The word Shiva itself is a representation of Parabrahma Tattvam. It doesn't have any other meaning other than being Shubham, Mangalakaram, and Parabrahma Tattvam. It's the other's way of saying Parabrahma is Shiva. That is what Shastras say. Not just that, even if we
Yeah,
go to the Rigveda itself, right? It says
everything.
Achintyan cha prameyan cha vyakta param cha yat sukshmat sukshmataran jneyam tanme manas Shiva sankalpamastu. Shiva sankalpa suktam.
Yeah.
It is very, very clear that Shiva and Parabrahma are no different. So it's just another word for it. When we see it in the formful aspect, that's when we are seeing that Shiva in the form of a person with a snake and all that stuff. But in the formless aspect, there is no difference between Shiva and Parabrahma. Another example, right? Yajjagrato duram udaiti tattvam tat suptasya tathaiveti durangamam jyotisham jyotirekam tanme manas Shiva sankalpamastu. The jyoti that is there everywhere in everything that we are seeing when you are awake or when you are sleeping, which we are seeing in all far off places. That means when you see in the night sky, all the stars that you see, all the things that you see, even when you are awake, that means sun and moon, all those jyotis are being lit by something that is called Shiva. That's what we are talking about. So the one that lights
up.
Even the
form also, even if we look at the form, there are so many forms. There is essence behind everything. It's symbology at the end of the day. If we get past the externalities and get into the Swarupa, right, we get hung up on Rupa. Go past the Rupa, get into the Swarupa, then all of these confusions will go away. True, Veeravare. Yes. Hope that.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Actually, one more interesting aspect, which I think we did not touch on, the term Pashupati. Praveen, you talked about that in the context of Trika, Kashmira Shaiva.
Yes,
But
yes.
there is another aspect, even from historic perspective, even for those people who don't believe in the Siddhanta and all that, right? When you go into Indus Saraswati civilization,
Yeah.
the first markers of a god that is worshipped in Bharat, it points to the symbol of Pashupati. So those are the ones that were excavated. There are examples of the Pashupati that are available. And even off late, there is a person who translated all those. I mean, very recently, when Shiva and I have been actually talking about it in the recent past, there is a person, I think his name is Yagnadevam, and he has actually,
Yajnadeva.
yeah.
Okay.
And he has actually taken the symbols and deciphered them, the symbols that were available from the Indus Saraswati civilization, and he actually rooted them back to Sanskritam. So,
Yes.
in the last 100 years, people who considered themselves to be intellectuals have gone against Sanskritam, but he actually went back and he actually proved that it is all based on Sanskritam. All the symbols were actually related back to Sanskritam, and he was actually quoting Vedic terms coming out of those small phrases that have come out.
Yeah, that's true. See, if the Vedas itself, like the structurization was done around the Mahabharata period, right? That itself means that, see, to derive structure into something, it has to be deeply embedded. We can't just take uh, work and then add structure to it. First of all, emerges something that is unstructured. For unstructured to become extremely prevalent, it takes a whole period of time. We have to, like, unfortunately, when we talk about many of our ancient philosophical aspects, we are extremely driven from this mindset of, like, viewing everything from the BC AD measures.
Yeah.
We need to understand, just if we look at, like, Vyasa, when he goes into all of this kind of classification of the Vedas, that time itself there are comments and quotes that come up saying that there is too much of unstructurization, people are getting confused, there is a lot of, like, confusion, so we need to structure this. And that's how the structurization of, like, Rik, Yajus, Sama and everything happens. But for that to happen, something should have been so widely prevalent, and that adoption takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Why did Nirukta had to come? What is Nirukta? First of all, Nirukta is dictionary kind for every
Etymology,
word.
right? Etymology.
Yeah. They talk about what is the meaning of this word. Why does, like, even for something like, Webster's, to include a word in revisions that happen, that word has to become so prevalent, so used across, that then it is going to become included in Webster's dictionary in a modern contexts, right? If someone had to write a Nirukta for Vedas, explaining the etymology, the meaning, and the root for every word, every aspect of that should have been present for a long duration of time. So we cannot kind of reduce that time period just because we don't want to believe that a whole civilization had been, like, using it. And that is why it was always Shruti, right? It was always vocal. It was just passed on before it got documented. And to be like totally open, I think the foremost folk literature is the Vedas.
So
Very
that
good,
Pashu,
very good,
the
Praveen.
reason I
So
took
I
you
think,
there,
oh, go ahead, Veer. I was going to just say that, if people are interested, everybody thought it's undecipherable, but that Yagna Devam, if you Google, and then you can actually watch some videos, absolutely mind-boggling the way he was able to decipher that and then actually bring some meanings to it. And it's still going a lot of rounds now. Other people are going to verify it and stuff, but it's very, very good. People should watch it.
Okay. Yep, I'll look it up. Thanks for pointing that out.
yeah,
Sure.
and
Veer,
he
I'm
points
sorry.
to the worship of Shiva and in those periods through those discoveries. But the reason I brought it up was this term Pashupati, right? Pashupatyam was a very well-known doctrine of that point of time. Not just in the context of Kashmira Shaivam, but also Pashupatyam existed as a separate way of worship at that point. There is also a Pashupatya Agama. And then even in the Vyasa's work, when you get to Padma Purana, there is this Shiva Gita in Padma Purana, where Shiva does Gita to Sri Ramachandramurti, right?
Yes.
In that one, the Diksha that Agastya gives to Sri Rama is Pashupatya Diksha. It's also called Viraja Diksha. There are two names for it.
Yes.
And it is clearly mentioned in there that Rama had to actually take Pashupatya Diksha and do tapasya for X amount of time, after which Shiva comes and gives his darshana, and then at that point of time he gives he does the Gita.
Some of these, I mean, like, so there are so many versions of Gita that got incorporated over a period of time. There is a Sita Gita. I mean, a Gita that Sita tells. There is Ribhu, there is Shiva, there is, of course, Bhagavad Gita. So some of those, like, there have been a lot of additions for sure. But yeah, ultimately, the essence is what we need to always focus on, because a lot of these things have been prevalent throughout. Yes.
Yeah, Ribhu Gita is different though. Ribhu Gita is from
I said there are many
I
forms.
mean, you have several type of Gitas, right?
types
Even
of
Ashtavakra Gita, Guru
Yeah,
Gita. So there are different, totally, there are
Vyadha
different
Gita,
needs and
right?
different,
Yes. In
Ribhu Gita actually comes
Mahabharata, we
from
get
Shiva
Vyadha
Rahasyam.
Gita also. Yeah.
The Ribhu Gita comes from Shiva Rahasyam, which was not written by Vyasa. It was actually written by
Even these Puranas and everything, over a period of time, there is so much that has been added.
Exactly. Modified and
Maximum
added,
number of additions have happened into Skanda Purana, obviously. Anything and everything you want to refer to, like there is one Sthala Mahima, one this Mahima, that Mahima, everything. It's the repertoire for all of those things. But yeah, I mean, that's why I always emphasize on the essence that is best.
Which is Vedam, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, I do have a question, but I don't want to start it now because it's going to probably take very long. I'll probably do it in the beginning of the next session because that's something to do with Shivam. And then I will just give you the gist right now, but it's not a question right now.
Sure.
Shivam being beautiful and then completely essence of Paramatma, Parabrahma, of course, Nirguna. But then how do we come to Rudra? So, but we will talk about it in the next one.
Yes. Yeah. Okay? Let's do that. Okay. Thank you.
Vidya Garu, you can close if you want.
Thanks a lot, Praveen Garu. Thanks, Veer Garu and Shiva Garu, for all the supporting discussion also. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was good. It was good, the discussion.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much.
As always, wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Bye.